So assignment of benefits, I mean, there's been case law established over the past 100 years. You know, a homeowner can assign the benefits of their insurance claim to a third party. Historically, that was typically utilized. Let's say you've had an insurance claim and you were in the process of selling your house. Well, in that process, you know, you have this claim, you have damage to the property. That could potentially, you know, disrupt the transaction for the real estate. So what people would do in many cases, they say, listen, we have this damage to the property. We still want to move forward with the real estate transaction. We will assign you the benefits of the insurance claim, but we're going to keep the sale price exactly the same as what we had in our initial contract. That way, the new buyer can get reimbursed for the damages to the property, and then the seller can still maintain the sales price that they previously executed in the contract. So that's been around for a long time. In first-party property, I would say probably back in like 2006, you started to see the utilization where contractors were utilizing assignment of benefits, where they would say, hey, listen, we will agree to help you with your insurance claim, maybe perform some services, maybe not perform the services, but we'll do it under an assignment of benefits. And when the insurance company pays, they'll pay us directly because you're assigning those benefits to us. And in return, we will perform the restoration or the construction services or contents cleaning, whatever the claim indemnity is associated to. So you don't have to pay us directly, you just pay us your deductible. That started really increasing. And again, there was a lot of abuses surrounding the practice of assignment of benefits. There were situations where restoration contractors were paying referrals to like plumbers and third parties. And they would say, hey, listen, if somebody had some water damage at their property and they call you out as a plumber, if you refer us out to the homeowner to kind of do the dry out and get us into the property, we'll pay you $1,000 or $2,000 cash, you know, kind of behind the scenes. Well, if you can think about it, if you're a plumber, you know, maybe you make $500-$600 a week, whatever the going rate is, maybe even a little bit more. If somebody's willing to pay you, you know, $1,000 to $2,000 cash on every single referral, that plumber is really not a plumber anymore, right? They're making more money on referrals. They're really a solicitor now for this restoration company that's utilizing these AOBs. Not only does that create an inherent conflict of interest, but many times that was not being disclosed to the homeowner. So when that plumber is making the referral, the homeowner is thinking that you're referring the best qualified person. They don't know that you're referring them because you're getting $1,000 or $2,000 cash, you know, kickback. So that was very problematic. So the legislature stepped in after a number of years of abuses within that space, and they passed a law, which is basically the assignment of benefits law in 2019, to kind of put some framework and some parameters around that practice. That area, I think, still needs some additional reforms. In my view, you know, I really think somebody taking an assignment of benefits should be limited to like emergency service work. The example would be, you know, if you need somebody to come out in the middle of the night because they got to dry the property and it's going to cost $1,000 or $2,000, maybe that homeowner doesn't have access to that cash right away, right? So having an assignment of benefits where they can still get that work completed, but not have to come out of pocket the funds seems to make sense to me. But when you transition over to doing like the full repairs, like we're going to replace the kitchen or we're going to replace your roof, none of that work is actually going to be completed for like months down the road, right? You got to figure out the cost. You got to file for permits. You got to, you know, have inspection. A lot has to be done. There's no need that a homeowner would have to assign their benefits immediately after a catastrophe or on the spot when somebody knocks on your door. So I think a great reform, not only for the marketplace, but to protect consumers, would be to limit assignment of benefits only for emergency work. The second thing that people are talking about is whether or not third-party assignees should be entitled to get their attorney's fees and costs paid by the insurance company. Again, another kind of contentious area. But if you look at the fee shifting statute in Florida that protects consumers, that allows them an entitlement to attorney's fees and costs, that was really there to be a protection for policyholders, for consumers. So if a policyholder or consumer had a low indemnity claim, let's say $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and for whatever reason there was a dispute with their insurance company, and they had to try to get adjudication through the courts, and then that ultimately that policyholder prevailed, you're talking potentially tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees and costs to get you all the way through the court system. So it wouldn't make sense, if you have only the homeowners, owed $15,000 to do the repairs, but the attorney's fees and costs are $20,000 plus, right? Because the homeowner would be left with nothing if it was just solely based upon the recovery of the amount that they achieved through the court action. So that fee shifting statute says, listen, if you prevail, you're entitled to recover your attorney's fees and costs on top of what the indemnity is. Now, in 2020, they passed a new law that has kind of this proportional fee shifting framework that says, if you get a certain percentage of indemnity, then you're entitled to a certain percentage of your attorney's fees and costs. So it's more of like a sliding scale instead of saying, if you just get one more dollar, you prevail. So you have to prevail by a certain percentage, and that affects the amount of fees that you can recover from your insurance company.